Hey guys, Chef Ryan here in the Growing Chefs Ontario classroom kitchen here at the Grove. And today for this recipe, I'm going to be showing you how to make an old favorite of ours here at Growing Chefs, the Kale Caesar salad. This recipe makes a perfect side dish for Chef Nick turkey pesto meatballs, so be sure to check out his video next. The classic Caesar salad was invented in 1924 in Tijuana, Mexico using romaine lettuce. I like to use kale instead in my Caesar salads because I feel it has loads more flavor and it really holds up to the dressing after it sits for a while. So you could even have this salad for lunch tomorrow. Let's take a look at everything we'll need for this recipe. To start my Caesar salad, I'm going to begin with the croutons. Croutons are a really important part of Caesar salad, and I like to use a nice sourdough for mine. You can use whatever type of bread you have at home though. I'll start by melting a little bit of butter and some olive oil in a large frying pan. Then I'm going to tear my bread into crouton-sized pieces. If you want to cut your bread into nice little cubes, you're welcome to do that, but I like the look of torn croutons. After I've ripped up my croutons and my butter and olive oil have melted together completely, I'll toss my bread into the pan with the butter and olive oil. I want to make sure that every piece of bread has a little bit of that butter and olive oil mixture on it so that it toasts evenly. I'll leave this on a medium heat, stirring often until they're all nicely golden brown and crispy. I'll also sprinkle on a little bit of salt and pepper. While my croutons are toasting, I can start to process my kale. I have a large head of kale that I'm going to wash and spin dry very, very well. I want to make sure that the kale is dry so that the dressing sticks to it. While I'm ripping up my kale, I want to make sure that I'm pulling the tender parts off that woody spine. I've washed and spun dry my kale, so now it's time for me to chop it up. As I was washing it, I gently massaged it as well. This helps to soften the kale and makes it a little less tough when you're chewing it. So as I'm chopping up my kale, I'm going to gather it into a little bunch and run my paring knife through it. I want it nice and finely shredded. And I'll set that off to the side in a large mixing bowl. I've finished cutting up my kale and it's shredded nice and fine, so I'm just going to set that off to the side. As I was cutting my kale, I was also keeping an eye on my croutons to make sure that they didn't burn. They're completely crispy and nicely golden brown, so I'm just going to shut off the heat and set them off to the side until we're ready to assemble. Now it's time for the Caesar dressing. I'm going to start with some anchovy paste in the bottom of a large mixing bowl. And to that, I'm going to add a little bit of Dijon mustard. I'll whisk that together. And then to this, I'm going to add 1 egg yolk. So very carefully separate the whites from the yolk. Add it to your bowl. And I'll whisk the yolk in with the anchovy and mustard. At this point, I'm also going to add some garlic. So you can use your paring knife to chop up the garlic, or you can use a raft or a microplane like this. I want really fine pieces of garlic in my dressing. Now I can start to slowly add my olive oil. I want to add just a little bit at a time so that my dressing comes together and is nice and creamy and thick and not a greasy split mess on me. So add a few drops, whisk it in completely, and then add a few drops more until all of your oil has been used. My dressing is nice and thick and creamy, so now it's time to add a little bit of lemon juice. So I have some fresh lemon juice. I'm just going to cut it in half and add the juice of half of my lemon. I'll squeeze it into my hand and make sure I catch any seeds that might fall out of my lemon. Adding the lemon juice is going to help brighten up our dressing and make it lighter in color as well. I'll whisk that in. And now I can add a big pinch of salt and pepper. I'll set that off to the side. And now I'm going to grate up some Parmesan cheese. When you're seasoning your Caesar dressing, you want to take into consideration how salty the Parmesan cheese is. So make sure you don't oversalt it at the start. I'll set some of the Parmesan cheese off to the side to use as garnish for later. And then I'll put a big handful into my dressing. I'll now take the other half of my lemon that I used for the dressing and cut it into wedges to garnish my salad. Make sure that you cut out any seeds if there are any still in there. So now it's time to assemble our salad. You'll want to make sure you have a large mixing bowl to do this. So I'll take all of my dressing and add it to the kale. And half of my croutons. Grab a pair of tongs and mix everything very, very well together. We want to make sure that every piece of kale is coated in that dressing. And now I can transfer my salad into a nice serving bowl. I can add my reserved croutons on top, a little sprinkle of extra Parmesan cheese, and those wedges of lemons that I cut up. And there it is, our kale Caesar salad with creamy homemade dressing. I'm Chef Ryan from Growing Chefs Ontario, and I hope you like this recipe.